Welcome to the Bedlam Nation Conversation. From the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoma, and with me today are OU beat writer Jake Trotter and OSU beat writer Scott Wright, and it's all come down to Bedlam, guys. For Oklahoma State, a bid for the best season ever in school history. 10 wins, maybe a trip to the Cotton Bowl. For the Sooners, all the BCS chips are on the table, a little Heisman action thrown in. So let's get right down to it, guys. Let's break down Saturday's big matchup, 7 o'clock on ABC. First, let's start when OU has the ball. The Sooners have this prolific offense, maybe the best ever. We're going to discuss that in the paper. What about pressuring Sam Bradford? Nobody's really been able to do it so far. Jake, why is that?
Because the offensive line is terrific, and then if you sell out and blitz him like TCU did, you get beat downfield in single coverage. So there's really no easy way to defend this offense. You almost have to hope that it struggles on its own to have a chance of stopping it, because they can run the ball now, they can throw the ball downfield, they can throw the ball underneath, they can throw the ball to 5 different guys who can catch. There's not a weakness on the offensive line. And now you have 2 running backs, probably the best running back tandem in America at the moment. So, I mean, where's the weakness? I don't know.
Scott, clearly the Sooners are not the Missouri Tigers, but that was a prolific offense when the Cowboys went up to Columbia, Missouri, and they did pressure Chase Daniel. Any chance of duplicating at least some of that on Saturday night?
I think it's going to be really tough, because if you look back at that game, OSU's pressure came mostly in the second half, and by that point, Missouri had really abandoned the run. Derek Washington finished with 11 yards that day. They pretty much gave up on even trying to run the ball. Oklahoma is not going to do that. Kevin Wilson isn't going to back off just because they have a few bad plays early running the ball. They're not going to quit. They'll keep pounding it with DeMarco Murray and Chris Brown. And so Oklahoma State has to find a way to not only stop the run up the middle, but also try to get pressure when there is a pass play. And that's going to be really tough, because like they did at Missouri, they were able to go to that 3-man offensive line that's all defensive ends across there. And that speed package allows them to try to get some pressure. But that is really negated when you're going up against a team that can run the ball as powerfully as Oklahoma can, because you need those defensive tackles in there to try to take up some space.
Here's the key to stopping OU. First of all, it's granted OSU's going to score a lot of points. They're going to have to score them, but they're going to have to control the clock with the ball. They're going to have to run the ball extremely well, keep OU's offense off the field. And then, too, they're going to have to create turnovers. I mean, that's really the key to stopping a great offense. Get it to stop itself. Pick off some passes, recover some fumbles. If they do that, they have a chance. But the problem is OU doesn't fumble the ball. They've had one fumble, legitimate fumble all season. That's an unbelievable statistic. And then Sam Bradford doesn't throw picks. So you got to be very opportunistic, which OSU has been at times at home. But I think that's the only chance OSU has of keeping OU under the 50-point watershed mark, which they've gone over 4 straight weeks.
The stopping the run part is a very difficult part. Texas did it. How?
Well, I think part of it was not the same run offense that Oklahoma took to the Red River Shootout that they're taking to Bedlam. And that's because DeMarco Murray's a different player right now. He's running like he did last year. He's making people miss. He wasn't doing that against Texas. How many times did we see him get the ball against Texas and get tackled by one tackler? It's not happening right now. So it makes the offense so much more dangerous. Even Chris Brown is probably running a little bit better than he did early on in the year. And I don't think he was playing bad at the beginning either. So the running backs are playing a lot better, and I think that's a big key why they're running the ball more.
Scott, who's key for OSU when it comes time to trying to stop the run? I mean, what gives OSU hope that they can do it?
But it's just like a good baseball team is made up the middle. That's the same thing that this Oklahoma State defense is facing. You've got to get good play from those 2 defensive tackles, mostly Jure Chatham and Tonga Tea. Swanson Miller's coming along. He's a junior college guy and is about on pace where you would expect a junior college player to be. He's starting to kind of show up and make some plays, but he's not on the field a whole lot. But Chatham and Tea in the middle there, and then middle linebacker Rory Lemon are the guys that really have to be able to fill those gaps and stop the run and try to force things outside. Oklahoma State's got good speed on defense when you get them pushed outside. The outside linebackers, Pat Levine and Andre Sexton, move well. The safeties are big hitters and fast guys. So if they can push things to the outside, they've got speed out there to try to compete.
Something that will be addressed today on News OK and in tomorrow's editions of the Oklahoman. Jake's going to write about DeMarco Murray and sort of the return of the old DeMarco Murray And Scott will be writing about the defensive tackles for OSU, specifically Ja'Ray Chatham, and how key they are to the Cowboys' hope of stopping the run. Let's jump over to the other side of the ball and talk about when OSU has the ball and really their goal of sustaining the run. How's that going to work?
Well, I think that Oklahoma State will be able to run the ball. The key is scoring enough points when you run the ball and you keep those drives going. You got to get points at the end. If you keep the ball for 6 minutes and don't get anything out of it, Oklahoma goes back down and scores a couple of those, and you're out of your offense like they were at Texas Tech. They're having to throw the ball and try to score quick and come back, and that's not their style. They need to just stay within a couple of touchdowns like they did at Texas. They never let Texas get ahead by more than 2 scores. And they can stay in their offense and keep running the ball the way that they want to. Kendall Hunter has been at his best in big games this season. The offensive line has been at its best in big games. He's averaging 142 yards in their 3 road games against top 3 teams, Missouri, Texas, and Texas Tech. And at Texas Tech, they had to give up running the ball early in the third quarter. So he's a guy that's played really well, and they blocked really well. So I don't see him having trouble running the ball, even though I'm not trying to discredit Oklahoma's defensive front. But these guys have been able to run the ball anytime they wanted to.
Jake, is this the best test Oklahoma's sort of reconfigured linebacker core, the new linebacker core that sort of taken shape since Ryan Reynolds' injury? Is this the biggest test they've had since the Texas game?
Well, against stopping the run it is. I don't know if they've really played anybody who runs the ball that well. So definitely stopping Kendall Hunter and that zone option that Zach Robinson and Hunter do. That's going to be a big test for Lewis and Clayton and Austin Box. And then also, to keeping Robinson contained in the pocket when he likes to get outside and make plays with his feet. Can't let him do that. So in one regard, it's not, because I think Texas Tech throwing the ball obviously was the best offense OU's faced since Texas. But running the ball, this is the best offense that OU has seen.
Okay, Des Bryant in the big games, mostly which have been on the road, didn't show really much in Lubbock. Not as much in Texas, and in Missouri really got knocked around pretty good. So here's the biggest game really from Oklahoma State's standpoint. What's their hopes of sort of getting the Des Bryant that they saw all season long in Stillwater to show up in Stillwater against the Sooners?
It's going to be tough for multiple reasons. One being the big games. He hasn't shown up in big games because the teams are playing have had enough talent on the defensive side of the ball to do things that take him away. Iowa State and Baylor and Troy didn't have that kind of talent to do that. Oklahoma definitely does. For one, Oklahoma State's been using kind of a deep slant a lot in the last few games. That's a play that you could be setting him up for some big hits like Missouri put on him. It seemed like they were hitting him at any chance they got up in Columbia that night. And Oklahoma, from what I've seen, they run a lot of two deep. They keep those 2 safeties back there quite a bit, and that really plays perfectly into being able to double team Dez and keep one of those safeties kind of designated for him and over the top. And against double coverage, it makes it really tough on him.
Here's the key: you got to run the ball and force those safeties to come up, and that's when you go deep. That's what OSU did in 2002. When they got up 35-6 or whatever, is they were running the ball, and then Rashawn Woods was going deep on the post routes and single coverage. They can set that up, but it comes down to can they run the ball early, and that's going to be the big key for OSU.
Right. Last year, about 193 yards rushing for OSU down in Norman, but the problem is when did those yards come? A lot of them came in the second half of the game, sort of decided at that point. So can they run it? Okay, guys, let's talk about the kicking games, which, frankly, Jake, I'm going to let you take this first. A great equalizer in this game could be the kick coverage that Sooners have struggled so mightily on. How is that going to?
Well, it was the great equalizer in the Red River Shootout. I mean, it was 14-3 at that point. People forget that Texas made it 14-10 and really went on a roll after that the rest of the way offensively. It's a big advantage for Oklahoma State all the way around. They had the better returners in Des Bryant, Paris Cox. Clearly the better kicking game. So, if this is something, OU doesn't have to win the special teams battle. They just have to not get destroyed in it. And if OU can just not let any big returns and not miss a bunch of extra points or field goals, I think they'll be okay. But if Des Bryant is returning a punt for a score, and they're missing field goals and getting them blocked and things like that, it could be a big problem for Oklahoma.
One more way that Oklahoma State can make that come into play is really by running the ball. Stoops has talked about the squib kick as an option, but you're less likely to squib kick it to a team that's shown they can move the chains. If it seems like a shutdown, if the Sooner defense is in shutdown mode and the Cowboys can't get much going, that'll almost neutralize Parrish Cox as a weapon. They'll squib kick it and then take their chances on field position.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's seen that quite a bit, especially early in the season when Parrish Cox and Des Bryant were really putting the hurt on people with the long kick returns. They've got guys up kind of playing the midfield positions that they feel. Bo Johnson, a backup running back, is one of the guys that's in up there. They've had tight ends and linebackers. Donald Booker is a big, fast linebacker up there who can catch the ball and run with it and make something happen. Maybe if he gets it in on one of those short kicks. Parrish Cox is a guy. If you go back and look through the last 6 or 7 games, he's a guy. There's probably 4, maybe 5 times that he's been one guy away, one diving tackle away from going all the way, and obviously that's been something that's hurt Oklahoma is not just the long kickoff returns, but touchdowns on kickoff returns.
Certainly, the kicking game is a huge wild card for this game. But sort of last question: who else is a wild card out there for each of these teams? Jake, you start first.
A player?
Yeah, player. Just a wild card. Somebody who's a
that
wild
wasn't
card.
on the list of
Right
questions
there,
you're going to say. Oh, where it is. Okay. Wild card. How about for Oklahoma? I'm going to go Chris Brown. He's a guy that does a great job of getting the tough yards. And if OU's run game stalls at all, they'll bring him in. And he may not get 10 or 15, but he'll get you 4 or 5. And I think that could be a big plus for this offense and set up some play action and stuff. Defensively, Austin Box is going to be a big key. Can he maneuver around, tackle Kendall Hunter, and help negate the run game? If they do that, I think OSU is going to have a really hard time.
OSU wild card?
Offensively, I think it's got to be Damian Davis. I think Brandon Pettigrew is going to get involved a lot, but he's a little bit more of a weapon than to be considered a wild card. So I think Damian Davis, he's not your typical slot receiver at 6'5" and 185 pounds. I'm not convinced he's 185 pounds either. It looks like a good hit would snap his femur in half, but I think that as a slot guy, he's shown that he can get deep. He can go up and jump across the middle and get the high passes if necessary. He's a guy that's got to be a factor. You look at that Missouri game; he was the biggest reason that they were able to score those 2 late touchdowns. And defensively, I'm going to say Andre Sexton. He's obviously a playmaker too, but he's going to be really important both in run coverage and in pass coverage because he'll get out there in the slot if they want to line Jermaine Gresham up in the slot or even I know Ryan Broyles plays there a lot too. Those type of guys. He ends up in coverage quite a bit from that weak side linebacker spot. So I think he's going to be really important on both run and pass.
I know you would have said this if I would have given you an advance billboard warning that the wild card question was on there, but I think Nick Harris is a huge wild card in this just because of the way he was throwing his body around on Saturday night against Tech, and also if OSU tries to force the ball to Des Bryant, that's going to be an interesting matchup with those two on crossing routes.
Cornerback's got to play well, the jump ball. That's a big weapon for OSU. They got to at least knock the ball down.
Thanks, guys. That's all for the Bedlam Nation conversation. To stay with the Bedlam story all week and in postgame, be sure to come to newsok.com and pick up the Oklahoman every day.